Hello everybody! So if you're planning to buy a new lens anytime soon, then today I will be talking about 6 things you should look out for when you're choosing your next lens. So the choice of a lens is very important, especially if you're going to invest some hard-earned cash on it. So you have to do your research and you have to look out for quite a few things before buying that particular lens. So first of all, the first thing you want to check out is its focal length. Now of course, the focal length will determine how you are going to use that lens. So focal length is entirely crucial. So if you're getting a zoom, you want to know what focal length to what focal length it covers, the shortest and longest focal length. And if you're buying a prime, basically it's just one focal length. So if you're going to do a lot of landscapes or you need a lot of wide shots, of course, get a short focal length. If you're going to do portraits, get mid to tele range. And if you're going to do a lot of long distance photography, then of course, get a telephoto. Of course, choose the focal length that you are going to use. Now, of course, focal length is the most important when choosing a lens. So coming up at number 2 is the second most important aspect to look at when you're choosing a lens. Now the first would be the focal length. Now the second most important aspect would be the maximum aperture. So every lens has a maximum aperture. It can be a f4, it can be a f2.8, it can be a f1.2. So the maximum aperture will have a great impact on the performance of that particular lens. So if it has a very wide maximum aperture, then you can use it during nights to get some really nice low light shots. Now if it has a rather narrow aperture, then it's not very ideal. Now, of course, the wider the maximum aperture, generally the better, because you get the availability of choice. Now, you can always stop a wider lens down, but if your lens has a small maximum aperture, that's as wide as it can go. So you can't really push it too far if it has a very narrow aperture, and you will have to bump up your ISO during low lights, so as to increase the light, which will decrease your image quality. Now of course, wide aperture, narrower depth of field, so it's much easier for you to get nice bokeh shots, especially if you're doing portraits. Now having checked out the focal length and the maximum aperture, the next thing you want to look at would be the build quality of the lens. Now given the focal length and the maximum aperture, the build quality will have some degree of impact on how your lens will perform, mainly on how long it will last you. Now check out the build quality first. Now if it's a very solid build quality, then that's perfect. However, if it has very poor quality, now you might have to consider investing on that particular lens for long term, mainly because it might not last you for that long before it breaks. Moving on, you would want to take a look at the AF motor. Now, most professional lenses come with some sort of ultrasonic motor or hypersonic motor, depending on how the lens brand names it. But mainly, you would want to prefer a lens with a very quick and silent motor like USM lenses, ultrasonic motors. They are quick and they are silent. Now, of course, there are many other types of motors like the micro USM, the stepping motor, and of course, the good old noisy micro motor. So generally, micro motor lenses are of lower quality because micro motors, they are more prone to failure. Now they break easily, there's no full manual override, and they are less quick compared to USM motors. Now, do research on the type of motors the lens has and how it suits your type of photography or videography. So if you have a Canon DSLR and you plan to do a lot of video with it and you actually plan to use the autofocus, you would want to get this STM motor because of the smooth focus pulling and the silent operation. But of course, generally for the everyday situation, I would recommend USM lenses definitely. Now coming up at number 5, you would want to check out if the lens has an image stabilizer. Now only some lenses have the image stabilizer built in. Now, I'm not saying that lenses with no image stabilizers are crap. Now it highly depends on the type of lens. Now for example, if you're getting a super telephoto lens, you would really want to get one with image stabilizer because a super telephoto lens without image stabilizer is extremely frustrating to use. Now not exactly frustrating, but then with an image stabilizer you will get a lot more usable photos and a lot less photos with motion blur, because telephoto lens, they tend to amplify your camera shake. So if you're doing video as well, image stabilizer would be a huge plus to your video production because it smooths out all the video and it removes all that jerkiness. So of course, image stabilizers don't really come with fast lenses like the 50mm. So it's not a mandatory thing to have. Just with the availability of image stabilizer, of course, it adds more value to the lens. But it's completely fine if some lenses don't have it, mainly because they don't really need it. Now, last but not least, you would want to take a look at the lens optics. Basically, how sharp the lens is, how much vignetting it has, how much chromatic aberration, and so on. Because these will determine your image quality. So of course, the sharper the better, the lesser the vignetting the better, and of course, the less the chromatic aberration, the better. So you want a lens with sharp results, not blurry, hazy photos. But of course, some lenses will be sharper than the others, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they are more superior to the others, but of course, it's something to look at. Just go online and check out the sample images of that lens. Just Google it, or you can go to sites like DxOMark or DP Review and check out the reviews on those lenses about the sharpness and the quality of bokeh, etc. So you roughly get an idea of how that lens performs. So that's pretty much it. 6 things to look at before selecting a lens. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, any comments, just leave them in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching again. See you in the next video.